should be recording. Yay, I see the file. The recording continuing going medieval. Keeps provided by Tinsley PR, however long ago now. What have we got for news to talk about? I know I got one thing. I just want to look at some of the other stuff first. Yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about that as well. But the main thing I made notes on, which I will grant, I'm not. My interest is limited, for various reasons. But yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 has been formally announced. So yeah, as I said, I've got limited interest because don't get me wrong, I like various Nintendo games. And there are certain things that could get me very interested, but it's also I'm not playing games as much as I used to. And yeah, that's really the main thing. I'm not playing games as much as I used to. So whether or not they are good games I would enjoy, games I would want to play, it's touching on it, not being too important. That reminds me of something. What? Construction material. What am I able to use bone to build? Or is it talking about something? I actually did want to look to see that if you can use bones, because why wouldn't you be able to use bones for something? Okay. Really? Wait, we didn't have fertilizer in the game. Do we? No, we don't. What? Since when? So, okay, hey. I've got to look into this now. Okay. There's no bone mentioned there. Or here, that's all leather. That doesn't even an option. No, there we go. You gotta love this wonderful, amazing design where everything overlaps itself. So... Oh, okay. Maybe in here then. Well, that specifically says mail. Mail helm. Then that's steel. Tower shield. Shield. No, even though I don't actually care, let's do that. Okay. See, I have to figure this out. Okay. This is considered plate armor. If it is even there. What the hell? See, this... Granted, part of the reason this is pissing me off is... and I'm dead serious. The book I'm writing at the moment involves basically this game almost to a degree. Not inspired by the game, but the idea of you got nothing. Build up from there. And I do talk about in there, I haven't had to talk about them for a while, using bones as material. That's why it's like, it does make sense. You need bone knives, not necessarily bone hammers. Those would probably come apart, but you could use a bone handle with something like that, using it as fertilizer. That makes sense. I hadn't actually thought of it. Bone isn't much of a resource for the book. But, yeah, but the idea of bone armor, it's like, no? What bone pieces would be large enough for that? I would say, what? That doesn't really make sense. But bone tools, there's also bone needles and such. That makes sense. A bone shield, not so much. Wait. Hey. Oh my god. How many bugs have I... No, that's a legitimate bug. What I'm ranting about is not a bug. That is just... They're not designing this intelligently. It's like they even have... in the damn flavor text. At least grind them up for fertilizer, but there's no means of making a fertilizer. I have no idea how long this message has been in there. But there's no indication, none at all, that you can produce any kind of fertilizer. It's like that arguably would have been early, very early. That would be like, that legitimately would be like here. Maybe one thing after, maybe. Because there's a lot of stuff you'd use for fertilizer. You would use ash. You can use ash for fertilizer. Because this is a resource in that book. At least it is one that they can easily get access to. So it's like, that makes sense. And you do use ash, not just for nutrients in there, but also to modify the pH of the soil. How much awareness they would have had back then, I'm not sure about. Oh, well, they would have had an awareness of the effect. They may not have an awareness of the control for it. Kind of like how, technically, we've been working with steel for as long as we've been working with forging iron. Because by accident, we do the forging of iron adds carbon to it, producing steel. But we weren't really good at controlling that for quite a while. Anyhow. But it's like, the bone, like grinding up bones, I mean, that would have been a concept, that would be considered ancient, even prehistoric. This group would have that knowledge and would absolutely have been using it. Would have absolutely been using it for fertilizer. In fact, there should even be composting here. I mean, well, okay, I'm not sure how early composting is as a concept. However, and partly I'm saying that because I can believe there's a lot of people today that have their own gardens but don't necessarily compost because they don't think about it. But it's like, it would absolutely make sense. I mean, there's potentially a lot of food waste here. Compost, so you can improve the soil here. There's no reason that they wouldn't think of that. They would not be aware of that. But it's like here, I was like, a bone helmet. How would you even make it? How would you even make it? Because bones, they come in odd shapes. You'd have to be able to bend them, set their shape. There's going to be holes because you can't have them line up perfectly. I can understand bone studded, but why? Why would you bother with bone studding instead of like using bronze to stud with or iron to stud with? There's better options. And this is just no. Evoking the torso of the... No! It invokes nothing but stupidity. I mean, here, let me put it like this. The only use I could see for the only way a bone armor could work is it's actually a leather armor or fabric. It's one or the other. Like a just leather shirt or a gambeson kind of thing. And you have strung bones onto it that just sit on top. That is legitimately going to add to armor in two ways. One, it's adding the physical resistance of the bone, of the material. In which case, then you could also use leather straps. You could use pieces of wood. You could use pieces of metal. All that would be perfectly fine. But there's also the fact, if it is not rigidly attached, that means it can flop around. And that can actually absorb a lot of energy. And just having something that absorbs that energy before it gets to you can potentially also... Well, not necessarily save your life, but it would like reduce the amount of impact to you. So it's like that would make sense. But this is like no. We actually have bone plates. No, evoking the torso of the crab. No, none of that is true. None of that is true. There's also though, if you were to like shape them to look like ribs on the outside, that is not necessarily going to add much in defense. but it will scare people. Because this is actually a very real thing, that you would have the armor shaped to be imposing, like the whole. I'm not actually sure how accurate it is, but the idea of having bronze armor that would be made to look like a human torso. You would also put muscle shapes in there to be more imposing. So it doesn't matter if the guy actually wearing that armor doesn't have a six pack. You put a freaking 8-pack of abs on there because it intimidates them that when they're first looking at it, because they may not recognize its armor initially, but they will see it and be like, "Oh shit, this dude's very powerful. He's very strong." It's an intimidation tactic. So covering yourself in bones, especially if they do appear to be human bones, because then it's like those are trophies. Shit, this dude's gonna kill me. Like that has meaning there, but it's not defensive. It would not add any defensive strength. But it's also then we got this bug where even though it's supposed to be filtered, the filter breaks once you do that. That is not how that should be working. These should only be the toggle to close and open should be after the filtering. So yeah, they definitely screwed up with that. I mean, look at how much. Oh man. But here now I have to look at this. Okay, wood armor. I can see how it actually has plates there. Which, by the way, I'm not even sure how well this would. It could work, but it would be likely just bark. I mean, eventually you might actually use well, this looks like outer bark. Eventually, you might use inner bark that would be woven around, but it would look like wicker, which legitimately could still have a positive impact. But yeah. Okay. So this is suggesting that the bones would be better than wood. Okay, I can see bone being stronger than wood, but you're gonna have an easier time actually, like, building a shirt like this out of wood. So this would probably, I would expect to have better coverage, better protection than bone arm. Yeah. All right. Okay. 0.21, which definitely better than that. And better than that. That's good. So even the worst mail is better than the best bone. That's good. But that's not mail. That's a shirt. I mean, to be fair, you would wear a shirt under the mail because you don't want that on your skin. But it's still that's not mail. Okay, and see here how it looks like it's plate over, in fact, the same shirt? Yeah, the coloring's a little different. Yes, you would wear something underneath. In fact, you might even be wearing mail underneath. But yeah, it's... And then Savage plate armor? Okay, so that it looks like it's just inferior material. You are not making it out of gold. Or silver, no. I mean, you may have that on there. Because again, if it is very dressed up, one thing that can help you if people see you if you're a commander, but it can also be, again, to intimidate. And, show off your value. I mean, true, it may attract some people to be like, oh, that's somebody to kill. But it's still, I mean, I can't imagine anyone using gold, because that would be so expensive, and they knew it was soft material. I mean, no. Oh, hang on. Let's... Oh, it's only actually giving the iron values here. But steel should be stronger. What the heck? Okay, see how here we do see the mail there. That makes sense. But here, it would have to be under the shirt. But you wouldn't ever do that. Okay, so you see with the horned helmet versus the great helm? The horned helmet could be more intimidating. Because it does make somebody appear larger. It also, depending what the horns are, may be... yeah, invoke the terror of the horned god, Lord of the Force. I mean, it's like that can also have an impact there. Because, I mean, imagine if it were like a 10 or 12 point buck that you put those horns on there. It's like, holy shit, that person killed that thing. That's a big animal. So it's, yeah. Yeah, Gambus in here. I actually don't remember if that would be true. The Gambison stopping arrows. I mean, potentially. Potentially. But I could also believe plenty of, arrows would get through, but the impact would be far, far lessened. Like, instead of the full arrowhead, it might only be the tip. So, like, from actual piercings to scratches. But still. This, I'm going to say it, it's somewhat insulting. I don't quite mean it that way. I'm meaning to be critical. I am meaning to be critical with this. I'm not meaning to be insulting. This makes me feel like somebody believes that you can look to Skyrim for history. So where's the glass armor? We need that too. Or obsidian armor. Come on, we need those things. Oh my god. No, legitimately, this is... Bone armor should be little different from something like that. Out of this. Yeah, the horned man. I mean, look at that. Dude comes running at you wearing that, especially because it looks to be a single material, single piece. That's going to scare you. Because, like, what the hell is that even? I'm like, that is actually in some ways, because this you can kind of tell, yeah, it's different materials. This looks like one material. That would scare me if they were running at that. Purely effective. Oh, and not necessarily intimidating, but just a nice effective helmet. But yeah, I'll also add, going back a bit, the whole concept of intimidation. That would also be why, like, berserkers and other units like that would run out naked and for their fights. Because again, that's intimidating. If you're in armor and you're going to war and a dude with some weapon is charging at you totally nude, you're going to be scared because, like, this person is insane. How am I going to even take him down? I mean, it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, when the suicide orc is running in. Notice, he's not wearing any armor, except maybe a helmet, that's it. But he's carrying the torch. It doesn't... all the other orcs are in armor. That dude isn't. That immediately your attention is drawn there, and you know this is a problem. Because there is no way anyone is doing that without reason. Or even on the walls. There's one that is, again, like, he's a bigger orc, is just swinging a two-handed sword around. I think it's Gimli that gets him. He's not wearing much armor, at least not on his chest. This is intimidation. It makes perfect sense to do that. Plus, there's also the element of when the armor is common across everyone. So it seems to be a single wave, just uniform wave. This harmonious horde coming to kill you. Okay? That's also intimidating versus it all being different. Because it seems chaotic, like there's less order, and that seems less dangerous. So when you have those that stand out, it's like, why is this person standing out? Oh man, it would be fascinating, and I don't know if some of them already have, but people who are way more into this history than I am and know it far better than I do. Because some of this is stuff I have read, stuff I've seen. Some of it is also just stuff I've thought through. And so when it's just my thinking through it, I could be wrong. But it would be fascinating, because I could believe there are people that have studied this era, would play this game, and seeing stuff like that and be like, no. And even be, no, I'm out. I can't do this. This is, what do you think this is? A fantasy realm? I mean, it's like, this is supposed to be a few hundred years ago, real Europe. I mean, no. It's really so annoying. But I mean, it's also, as I said, to give it some credit, I have been writing a book that involves how to do this, how to do some of this stuff. So I've had to read on some of this. I have had to, mainly the manufacturer of things. Not like how to do, well, not exactly how to do the research. I mean, it's kind of in it, but not exactly. But, you know, some of the stuff wouldn't be specifically relevant in there, but... Yeah, I'm just going to do that. I think the windows are still closed, so they can just stay closed to help keep temperatures up. But, like, you know, building a furnace, building a kiln, which I already gave my criticisms that these don't quite look right. But anyhow, that, yeah, how to do that, how you would actually make up some of this, because it's... Hang on, let me look at something. Now, it'll be here. Is it here? Okay. Okay. This makes no sense. Look at it. It seems to be smooth. I'm just like, this is a clay furnace, so that makes sense. Sorry, clay kiln. So that makes sense that you could smooth it because clay is malleable. But this is limestone. You don't... Limestone is not malleable. And it's also, why is the furnace seemingly less smooth than the kiln, even though the kiln is older? I mean, yeah. Look at the model here. You have this tray at the bottom for the metal to pour off into, which actually, I don't even think that would be physically possible in this situation. What does it take to build one of those? Just clay. Yeah, this is completely inaccurate. Yeah, it really wouldn't. You would need a crucible for the metal to melt into, and it's the crucible that you would heat up. The problem is, something like this, you'd expect it to be kind of like this, where the fire, the material being directly in the fire. Okay, but this showing this my brain is just this track. I know that's not the right word, but I cannot think of a better one, the correct one. This track that would flow down. It's like, well, for one thing, you might not be getting enough to actually have it to really get a steady flow there. But what would that be made out of? Such that it would be smooth enough to actually flow, but also survive the heat there. But it's like, look at how well-formed that is. How well-formed the basin is, the pool is that it falls into. Then look at the actual shape of the furnace itself. It's very rough, uneven. That doesn't make any sense. Why do we have this inconsistency here? And then it's like with this, we have the kilns having a smooth surface. This being rough and this being smooth makes more sense because this is the thing that you would be building first. There's also, how are you making the bellows out of clay? And this, because that coloring looks like it's actually metal. Which again doesn't make a lot of sense because, like, we're gonna use a forge to melt metal so we can do things with it. Oh, cool. How are we gonna get it? So how are we going to have it flow out? We're gonna build a metal channel for it. There we go. Channel. That was the word. Wait. A metal channel? Isn't that gonna melt as well? Next question. It's... The way you would have originally done these furnaces, from what I've seen, and this I have actually had to look into, you would have the metal directly in where the wood is, because you just have the ore there, and it will melt to clean, which will somewhat purify it, because a lot of stuff will be burned away. But it will then be just a hunk that will include slag that you don't want, the metal, and also potentially products from the wood and such, or charcoal that you're using. And then that you need to break up and do stuff with. That hunk you need to break up and do stuff with. This you would only be getting to when you would have a crucible, which would be a very well-made ceramic cup, essentially, because the ceramic may survive those temperatures completely intact. So you'd have the ore resting in that. But even then, you know what? I could believe it wouldn't be the ore, unless you knew a very high-quality ore. I could believe it's actually that hunk that I was just talking about, that you'd make from this furnace. I believe it would be that you put it in the crucible to melt it again. So that way, the soil and such, and other materials that are part of the ore, will not be a part of it. Yeah, I could absolutely believe that. That it would be a two-stage process. Until you are very good at identifying the ore or cleaning the ore first. Now I am very curious about that. I'm getting very technical in this. Sorry about that. But it's just... This is touching on something that I am interested in. That I am learning about. So to see it being wrong annoys me. Yeah. Okay, that's all. Although, yeah, no, we're not using gold and silver. Come on. Yeah, it's labeled as a construction material, which I guess they're counting that's a crafting material then, not construction. It's just a video game. It shouldn't be frustrating me this much. But it's like I said, this is touching on stuff that I have been looking into of late. And by of late, I mean, like, technically over a year. And it's, as I'm just looking more at the details here, I'm seeing more and more how truly stupid a lot of this is. And I wish it wasn't. And also part of the reason why it annoys me is that there are actual achievements that the people of the depicted era here would have done that this seems to be ignored, or that you could not imagine them achieving it if this were accurate. Now, fortunately, it is not accurate. But I'm saying, remember, you already had Rome's aqueducts at this point in time, which plenty of them still stand today, and I think several are even still functional today. Not that they're necessarily being used by people today, but that they can't, well, or used heavily today, but they still can carry water. And also grand cathedrals that make all of this seem irrelevant. This is one thing, because like going back to the limestone, something that I saw concerning the pyramids, and how were the large limestone blocks made. Well, apparently we found that when looking at the crystalline structure of some of the limestone blocks, there are features there that you actually expect to find in concrete. Well, limestone is a viable material for cement if you break it up. So it's possible that some of those blocks were actually formed on site. Were made by cement. And some people might think, oh, well, that's ridiculous. The ancients like that, they didn't have cement. It's like, why not? Limestone is one, and this is something I know I've talked about before, limestone would have been one of the materials that they would have focused heavily on using. Because it's one of the materials they had access to. They would have been masters of it. Just like how here, there's more clay in this biome, in this specific biome, than limestone. So I've been making more things out of clay. Yes, I do have plenty of limestone as well for things. But like, these are all clay. Because I have the clay for it. Same kind of idea. So it's not unreasonable at all that a culture that has significant access to limestone would eventually have found that if they turned it into a powder, let it get wet, and potentially have other materials mixed in there, which may have been mixed in by accident or intentionally, or even just if they broke up limestone, some of it were gravel, some of it were a fine powder, it got wet, they might find that, oh, now it's a solid block. That it had cemented itself. Yeah, they could have absolutely figured that out. So it is not unreasonable that that would have been discovered. Let's see what I can do here. Probably not too much. Do not need barley. I can take more beets. More beet seeds, I should say. How do I not have cabbage seed? You really don't need all that flax. Or flaxseed, I should say. Oh, I didn't realize I had actually managed to train a wolf. Cool. Alright. I am... Okay, so there's the... Huh. Let's actually do that. Let it go to seed. I don't like the idea of running out of seed. Hang on. Okay, well that's only right as an option, so... How would I have been running... How could I possibly be running out of herb seed? I do not understand this. I should have more than enough seed. Okay. Thinking about... Okay. Okay. I'm thinking about trying to, like, cut down and put, a second floor here. To store more, but, I mean, it's... I got lots of seeds, actually. Well, mainly flax, but still, lots of seeds. How would I... And this has been going long enough, I don't know how I wouldn't have plenty of herb seed. Carrots, I can understand a little bit. Okay, let's go to seed. But for these that just need to get ripe, how does that make any sense? What? Oh, that's right. I did set this up, didn't I? I'd totally forgotten about this. I will be honest. The heck? No idea why I would think that would be forbidden. Okay. What the hell? Why would anything... I got no idea. I really don't. And I think that's all I can really say there is I just have no idea. At least these straps are working nicely. Now, I wonder if it would be worth setting something up like this where it would be like a single path, so a bit more control. But I don't think it's worth it. It takes too long to build this stuff. I mean, if it were Minecraft where it's actually pretty quick and you control priorities very directly, which it is you do and do not want to do, maybe. But for these people are too stupid. The settlers are too stupid. And I also just remembered, I still got to talk about Switch 2 stuff, don't I? I started talking about it and then stopped. Because the bones distracted me. So yeah, it looks like a nice upgrade. The question is pricing. I've seen a lot of people complain about that. That's one thing where I'm not sufficiently interested in this stuff to know how that compares to the other consoles, and I haven't just looked it up. It does seem to be a bit too in line with where the Steam Deck and similar are, which those would be, by virtue of being essentially mini PCs, more versatile, and so there's a greater value to them. So yeah, that is a bit of a problem. One thing that I had seen about the announcement that's like, oh, that's really neat, but then I saw a little bit more, and it's like, oh, no, never mind. Is seeing some GameCube games come to it, that's awesome. Because I'm just like, I don't have my GameCube out anymore. It's in storage, essentially. But I do have my Wii out. It's actually a little more than arm's length away from me at the moment. So I can play all my GameCube games, and I do have those. Although I don't know where one of them is. I was looking a week or two ago, and I know I have a copy of Luigi's Mansion. I don't know where it is. It's either behind some stuff, or it's in storage as well, like with the GameCube. Don't know why, but in any case, still, I can play that. I can play what else I have here, and I got my Wii collection too. So yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, that's awesome to see. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me look at. Oh, you need to pay a subscription to have access to stuff? No, I'm not interested. I'm not a subscription kind of guy. It's like if I own it, like I want to own the things that I want to have, not just have access to them. And you know, there's various reasons to that. One is, you know, the whole that way I know it's not changing. But it's also then I know I have access when I want to have access, as opposed to I have access when somebody allows me to have access. Like one thing, with Val Kilmer's death, I'm pretty sure the only movie I have with him in it is Top Gun Maverick. That's just this stack that's in is actually nearby. And yeah, let me try looking this up. The way I first saw it was actually Amazon had it and the original streaming. So that's how I watched them, and I enjoyed Maverick more than I enjoyed the original. So yeah, okay. So the only way I could watch that would be on Paramount Plus, currently streaming. So if I wanted to watch it in honor of Val Kilmer, I would have to have a Paramount Plus subscription. Versus, I just pull the disc out. Or watch the version that I have on my server. Which is legal. If you feel like pointing that out. Because it's my copy of the disc, essentially, on the server. So I can watch it more easily. It's like, I can do that whenever I want. I don't need to pay a subscription. It's just there. Now, other things that Paramount Plus is offering that maybe I'm not interested in, I'm not paying for. So it's also like that. I mean, it's like that's one of those things where that's how For some stuff, subscription models make sense. Like cable, it made sense for that, where you pay a larger amount. No, it's actually domesticated. Where it's like, even if you only look at 10 channels, you're paying for 100, but by paying for the 100, then those 100 are also getting some of that. So your very, very popular channels that, like ESPN, that, cable companies were making significant money on. Oh, I'm going 40 minutes, wow. It's like that people are paying mainly for that. Well, part of, because it's bundled with other things, as just part of the cable, now some of that money being made there is also going somewhere like, say, Turner Classic Movies, which I would actually watch more than ESPN, but that's a different discussion. Or just smaller channels, even smaller channels as well. That kind of thing makes sense, and because it allows, it's essentially the rising tide raises all ships kind of concept. Where now other things that might be more experimental, might be more niche, are still able to exist because they're in the wake of things that are more mainstream, more desired, more generally desired. So there is a value to it, but at the same time, it's just doesn't mean I always accept that value. And it's also funny how part of the original idea with streaming was you basically, oh, well, I only want these 10 channels, I only pay for these 10 channels, not pay for the 100, so it saves you money. But you can't, a la carte like that was never going to be viable. Because even with, oh, I just want ESPN, oh, but I only want it for baseball, I don't want it for football, you can't get that a la carte. So the money being paid that supports baseball was also supporting football, for example. Things like that. But yeah, I mean, it is funny to see all these streaming services basically come to realize that, yeah, that model that had been used for decades, turns out it was used for decades because it works. Our new model doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, it is funny. It is legitimately funny that basically people learning that Chesterton's fence is a real thing. I think I've explained that before, but just in case, I'll explain it again. G.K. Chesterton, he proposed this thought experiment to people that if you come across a fence across a road and it inconveniences you, so you want to be moved, his argument is no, you cannot remove it until you have stopped and thought about why that fence is there, what purpose does it serve, and how its removal will be an improvement. Okay, that only then, once you have given it that consideration, are you allowed to remove it. I don't know because of how silly this. Well, hang on. Hey, that does do it. No, doesn't. Oh, anyway, I'll just start digging there anyway. Regardless. So the idea being that once you understand why in his point being, once you understand why it is there, then you may take the time to get rid of it, to move it, to change it. There. I want to put down the more advanced traps. Oh, yeah, and I can also do that here. Cool. Um, so yeah, it is basically a lot of these streamers are just coming to realize that Chesterton's fence is it is a very real and legitimate thing. That they should have stopped and considered why things were done the way they were done, and understand there's a value there. You can still decide to change it, but the fence can still be taken down. But you need to understand why it was there, and then also be able to consider, okay, what will the result be from removing it, and will that be better or worse? I mean, it's also kind of funny, because something else that occurred to me when I was thinking about some of this recently, is that a lot of these streamers, where they're going to is even at higher paid tiers, they're still going to run ads, because that makes them more money. It's more reliable for them. And it's like, well, I bought the disc, and then I pulled the media off the disc to put it into my server. It's like, I don't have to worry about any ads at all. I paid for it up front, so I don't have those ads. Now, true, if I would have put the disc in, it may run ads, some trailers at the start, but I can skip those. So that's neat. But whereas with a streamer, I can't skip it. And it's also, now I have greater control over the video quality. It's the Blu-ray. I don't have the 4K, but it's the Blu-ray, so it's like 20. That's probably around 25 megabit. Which there's no way that's being streamed. The audio quality is also going to be much better, because that's probably DTS-MA. DTS-MA seems to be the dominant option for quote-unquote lossless audio. And I don't feel like pulling it out to make certain. I mean, it literally is in a stack, so I don't want to. That'd be a pain. Yeah, so it's higher quality, avoidable ads, and I only had to pay for it once. I don't remember what I paid. It was probably like $20, $25. And by the way, I would just say this because this is the case for that. As I said, I don't enjoy Top Gun as much as Top Gun Maverick, which is why I didn't buy a copy. But it's also, if there were actually a 2-movie Blu-ray pack, I would have bought that if it wasn't too much more expensive. Because, like, yeah, that way I got both. Even though, yeah, I don't particularly care for Top Gun. I mean, it's too much of the bromance in there. I mean, I get it that it's part of the era that movie came out. I get that. I do understand that. I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean I enjoy it. So, yeah. But the only 2-pack was 4K. They were both 4K. It's like, that's awesome. I don't have the ability to play those. They're not of value to me. So, yeah. Someday I will, but not at the moment. So it's like, now, just buy the single. And it's... That legitimately, it was a little disappointing. Because I would have been happy to have both in my collection if I didn't necessarily care for one of them. And I got other things like that, where I, not too long ago, bought the Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire era. So it's like, yeah, now I got Spider-Man 3. I don't really intend to ever watch it, because I have watched it. It's not, I didn't care for it, didn't really like it. But 1 and 2 I did like, and it's like, yeah, I'll just buy the trilogy. That's fine. But anyhow, was there more for me to say on this Switch? Yeah, $450 for just the console, $500 with Mario Kart World. There are concerns about game prices themselves, that apparently some are potentially like $90, which... it's been weird, the debate there, that I've seen people having about it. And I'll just add this concerning that. Because some people are saying, well, shouldn't the digital be less expensive? Well, not exactly. Because don't forget, I mean, it's like that Top Gun Maverick. I have the disc thing. Now, assuming that it wasn't made faulty, like Warner Brothers, the WB DVDs were recently, or rather that come to light recently, that disc will last decades for me, right? So they had to spend how much money to make that. And then that was it. Paramount's concern for it ended then. They don't pay for it to be on the for Amazon to keep it on their shelves. Okay, they don't. Amazon actually paid Paramount, or whoever it is that distributes it, paid them to own it so it can be on their shelf to then be sold. Okay? Whereas when something's on a server, That's a continuous cost. Okay? So Paramount Plus has that movie on there. That means that there are potentially dozens of servers across the planet that they are having to pay to, if they own the server, to power, to lease this, to rent the space that it's in, to, or just pay taxes if they own the building itself. They might also be be leasing space on the server. It might not be their own server. They might be using Amazon servers for all I know. So they're having to pay that cost, and they're paying it continuously. Okay, until they decide, well, we're just going to drop this because why keep it? If we drop this movie and potentially some others, then that means we are using fewer servers, which is a benefit to them. So it is one of those things where technically digital distribution is, in the long run, more expensive because it is not. It is a continuous cost, not a one-time cost. So there is that. There's also people talking about inflation. It's like, well, no, that's not exactly true. I mean, yes, it is true, but it's also things have become more accessible. I mean, think about. I like to use the example of books. It may not be a great example, but it used to be hardcovers were basically the only books that were made. When paperbacks were figured out, paperbacks are a lot cheaper to make. Well, that also meant that more could be made there, but it was that more authors could get the stuff written because it was lower cost. But it's mainly the whole it became cheaper to produce this. So it's like, yes, there is inflation, but there are also new technologies that bring the cost down. So like to use Nintendo, they no longer have to constantly make new game engines for their stuff. They like not like how they used to. Some of those games, I don't know, but some of those games maybe they're using Unreal Engine, so that's a huge reduction in their own engineering costs. It is Nintendo though; they're probably still using all in house, and good for them for that. But still, is the whole there is the technology bringing down costs as well. So inflation, you shouldn't just justify by inflation. Um, yeah, as far as prices being that high, it is also because they're going to cartridges. Well, the Switch uses cartridges, and I saw something. Apparently they are microSD Express cards instead of just regular microSD, so a little bit more expensive. But again, that technology is probably less expensive now than when the Switch 1 came out. Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it is that they're charging more because they are seeing that greater cost there. Because, oh yeah, I could definitely see that with Nintendo, actually. I could believe that the average library of Nintendo games for the Switch and ultimately Switch 2 will be 1 to 2 dozen games. Which, what would that be? I'm not sure how old the Switch 1 is, but let's say it's 6 years. That would be 2 purchases a year. That 2 purchases needs to fund, if it's digital distribution, needs to fund those servers and everything else tied to that. Now compare that to Steam. Steam, yes, they're all largely one-time purchases. You don't pay for just using Steam, but they are so frequently running sales. Running discounts, so you're seeing more sales from that. That even though the margin is less, it's still they're constantly making money that funds the servers, the server cost. Same thing with the GOG as well. That's not as those are quite different from say EA and Ubisoft, which have because they also make their own games. Valve, yes, but infrequently. GOG is sister company to CD Projekt Red, but it's still neither of those companies put out games frequently. So they have to cover their server costs by selling things at the by putting the servers to use, by having somebody purchase. But yeah, so it makes sense then that they are using those sales as a way to bring in more money to fund the continued existence of the service, to offset that continuous cost. Whereas, what is EA calling it now? I don't even remember. It used to be EA Origin, but I think they're changing just the EA app or something. I don't know. Then Ubisoft to whatever they're calling that now instead of Uplay. Regardless, Ubisoft Connect is at it. But they technically have their main games that they're selling that are subsidizing that. And it's kind of like how Amazon, they make their money off of Prime subscriptions, not off of Prime Video, so they can just waste hundreds of millions of dollars, even, and have wasted hundreds of millions of dollars even on Prime Video stuff, because it's like it doesn't matter. They got so much money elsewhere. Although it is starting to matter, because it does seem they finally have people realizing, yeah, no, we need these to actually be sustainable on their own, not just surviving off of the general fund. So yeah, this has gone everywhere, hasn't it? But yeah, so it's the cost. It is going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with the cost of those games, because it is a problem. But it is also, if you're not for, I would be considered a whale when it comes to games. Although it has been a while since I've purchased many games. But it's like I have hundreds to thousands in my library, in my Steam library, right? And plenty of people do. And a lot of them I haven't played. A lot of them I haven't downloaded. Um, Still, that's a lot of money that I've spent. I am in the minority. The majority of players would have far fewer. But again, it's those sales doing that. Well, Nintendo, though, I can believe has far less. That their whales are far fewer. And so yeah, I could see it being essentially we're charging more to fewer people. Um, yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to find out what those numbers are. I doubt I ever will, but it's just yeah, it is. Hmm. I do wonder a little bit now about all that. All right. This was part 99. This is video 99. Wow, I've definitely been just yakking. Sorry about that. I don't have anything more to add. There hasn't been an announcement about Titan Quest 2, so it looks like we will get part 100 next week. I'll have to make up new thumbnails. I mean, it's easy enough. I just need to run a script for it. But it still is like, yeah, it looks like gonna be hitting part 100 with this game before Titan Quest 2 comes out, and I can legitimately say I'm going over to that. Oh, that does also remind me, Satisfactory, its version 1.1 update has been put onto experimental. I put that on the test list. I have looked a little bit at it. I'm going to look some more at it probably this weekend. I'm not going to do videos in that. But it's definitely neat. They're adding a lot of things in that are highly desirable. Like one being now splitters and mergers can be put on conveyor lifts, so they're vertical splitters and mergers. Yeah, that's neat. I also saw that there's one thing that I think I have a whole one location that is actually going to be useful. A priority merger. So with the 3 belts coming in, you can have it say take from this one more often than take from the other two. And there's 3 levels of priority, but it's like I have one spot that might actually be useful in all my stuff. I don't get that complicated, but it still is like that's kind of funny. So yeah, and there are plenty of other things like the blueprints. You can now have them link together, so like conveyor belts link across blueprints when you build them. That is amazing. Only thing is that I have designed a whole bunch of towers, so it'd be vertical linking. I don't think that's a thing. I mean that's fine. That's fine. So it's more so for the horizontal builds that'll be useful, but it still is. That can be very useful things, and I think it can also link trains. The train rails. That will be very nice because they're trying to make sure things there are regular. I think that there's some other things as well for helping with placement. So it's all that very, very neat. It'll be really cool to see when that goes to live. All right, enough of my yakking. See you next time for part 100.